Hey everyone. So, big news last week. Mindset Pharma announced that they're partnering with one of the leading mental health institutions in the world in CAMH, which is located in Toronto, Canada. Mindset plans to sponsor a preclinical study using second generation psychedelics and is also being prepared for first in human studies. Big news to say the least. So, what kind of an impact does this have for the breakthrough of mental health quality? We break it all down in our latest podcast. What's going on, bro? Hey, everyone. Welcome to TDR's podcast. And I am happy to be joined here in the podcast once again. Been a few months, but we welcome back the CEO of Mindset Pharma, James Lanthier. James, it's been a few months. How are you?
Shad, as they say, it's been a minute. I've been good. How about you?
Isn't that the truth? Isn't
Yes.
that the truth? The days are long, but the months and years go by fast, do they not?
Boy, do they ever.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just talking off the camera about some things that just kind of like puts things into perspective about living in the moment. But that is so true. But speaking of the moment, I know there's been lots of change, and I've been asking this to a lot of CEOs recently because let's face it, I think we're getting a real understanding of where this industry now is going to grow and mature, and maybe some of the things where people are now understanding that I think were inaccurate when it first began. A lot of it has to do with the quality of research, the amount of money that companies are raising, and diversification. But what do you make of the way the industry has performed? Um, from the public market standpoint, we already have an understanding of what that is. But behind the scenes, what are you seeing and experiencing that can talk about the optimism and I guess the positive direction from what you're experiencing as to where this industry is going?
Yeah, well, as always, I can really comment best on our own business
Yeah.
and a lot better than I can to talk about the businesses of others. But I can tell you that everything that we see within our business is absolutely, heading in the right direction and really even exceeding, our own expectations, right? So our
Really?
mission from the very, yeah, our mission from the very beginning was really straightforward. It was, we were of the view that, the known psychedelic drugs, first generation drugs like psilocybin were, a great proof of concept for, the potential of psychedelic medicine or medicines based on these structures. But the big opportunity, existed with newer, optimized versions of those drugs that would, enjoy stronger intellectual
Yeah.
property rights, but also would make up for some of the shortcomings that exist with first generation drugs. And so everything, I think since we last talked has, to us, continues to really prove out that, original thesis. So, all the data that we see in our programs,
Yeah.
is really confirming kind of what we saw, a year ago, 6, 12 months ago, which is, an improved safety profile in our portfolio, shorter durations, and we were also one of the first groups to start filing patent applications in the space, and now we're starting to see
Smart.
the fruits of that effort come to bear. So we announced just a few weeks ago, we got our first notice of allowance on a patent application with a really early priority date that covers a lot of our family one compounds, and we're certainly, I think, have reasons to be, hopeful that that won't be the last one that
Yeah.
we've
That's exciting.
gotten. So yeah, everything's headed in the right direction. The if you were a believer in, the breakthrough potential of psychedelic medicine before, well, I wouldn't worry too much about these public market valuations because all that potential is still there and more. So yeah, it's all good as far as we're concerned.
Entry point levels. I can't imagine people that would get in at this mark right now. It's when you look at key companies, and like you said, like yourself, you've always been looked at as like the second generation psychedelic leader in the space, and a lot of darlings, within the industry, and your obviously name comes to mind. So I want to maybe back those words up and educate again more of my viewers on what I mean by that. So I first want to begin with news that you announced last month. You announced that one of your lead preclinical compounds, MSP 1014, which is a novel and patented second generation psilocybin like compound, it's making advances towards getting into phased clinical trials. Do you want to elaborate on that and maybe give my audience up to speed on what we can expect timelines as to what are the next moves?
Yeah, absolutely. So MSP 1014 is a drug that we created because we saw an opportunity to improve on some of these shortcomings in psilocybin. We believe that there was an opportunity to make a really a safer, more predictable drug. And MSP 1014 is our most advanced asset. So we did make an announcement relatively recently about starting to engage with the regulator, the MHRA, the regulatory body in the UK,
Yeah.
as we're starting to define our clinical trial plan. We're also seeing lots of interest from a number of different groups and potentially partnering with Mindset on MSP 1014. So I think we'll probably have some more news to share in the next little bit, but that will definitely the information coming out of that meeting is going to be really useful to us, and it'll certainly position us to be into clinical study on MSP 1014 either by the end of this year or early next year.
You touched on shortcomings that you learned and saw with traditional psilocybin. Like, what are some of the things for people that are starting to learn and understand more between traditional psychedelic compounds and second generation? But what were some of those shortcomings that you did see?
Yeah, so I think one of the potential limitations of psilocybin, and that I think's been discussed before, is the duration, right? So
Yep.
a 6 to 8 hour slot for being in a clinic is a long time out of your day, and ties up, if you need two therapists, it ties up lots of resources. Not a very efficient model for seeing patients. But I
And
think there's also
expensive.
yeah, and yeah, exactly. I think there's we think that safety is an underappreciated concern. Generally speaking, these drugs are fairly safe and certainly not addictive. But when you're talking about patient groups that have been suffering from depression without relief for decades, well, odds are they're probably going to have more than one thing wrong with them. So,
Okay.
and we've seen in some of our preclinical testing, in animals, we've seen some really sharp declines in body temperature at escalating doses
Hmm.
of psilocybin, and some of that's reported in the literature. And what we've seen with our compounds is really no change in body temperature, and in some of our other families we've seen similar safety improvements. So I think that's going to be, when you're talking about taking psychedelic drugs outside of kind of the world of gray or black market adult recreational use, and
Yeah.
you're taking them to down a regulated pathway to huge patient groups, that predictability and safety, I think, is going to be a bigger issue that we need to deal with, and that you can deal with, we think, through second and third generation drug design.
We've touched on this before, and I like to try to make this as simplistic as possible. But when you're explaining to people, and I'm sure you probably get to ask this a few times per day, but what is, I guess, the most simplistic explanation that you can provide about the biggest difference between first and second generation psychedelics? Like for a new chemical entity, like say, like an MSP 1014?
Yeah, so really what we're talking about is a difference in chemical structure, right? So um, So psilocybin has a very, specific chemical structure. What we've tried to do is, and what we've done quite extensively, is tested and experimented with making changes to that molecule so that you've got something that in the eyes of the patent office is a new chemical entity. So it's a new molecule that's never been described before in literature. And then, then we test its effects to
Mm-hmm.
see, have we created something that is, similar to, or better, potentially better than psilocybin? Well, then we're going to keep working on it.
Right.
If it turns out that, that it's inferior in any way, then we don't keep working on it. And
Right.
and because you're dealing with new new molecules, you really have to do this systematically, because you don't really know, once you start the chemistry work, what you're going to get. You try to approach it from an informed scientific point of view, but it really does require you to go through to do a lot of testing and sifting of what you're able to synthesize,
Right.
to figure out and identify which are kind of your most promising candidates.
So,
So that was really Mindset's focus for the first couple of years of its existence.
which is a good one. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to find out too, based off of that, like how much tangible difference, you touched on psychiatrists being there, as many like as two, it being expensive, it taking 6 to 8 hours of your day. So when you're looking at second and third generation drugs, like how much of a tangible difference do you think it'll have when it comes to psychedelic assisted therapy versus, say, what patients are experiencing today?
Well, I think it could make a huge difference. I mean, for one, the time the duration is obviously a really big issue. We think that safety and predictability is tied to, really kind of tied to duration. We also think that we're still in really the early innings of the medical psychedelic
Yeah.
space. We don't even we've got lots of momentum, and there surely will be approved psychedelics for medical use in the near future, but we're not there yet. But that means there's a whole universe of other psychedelic drugs outside of kind of the 4, 5, or 6 that you hear talked about all the time, the psilocybins and DMTs and LSDs and so on. And I think our view of kind of the medical psychedelic future is that there's definitely opportunity for more than one approved drug. And I think we're really excited by the idea of a more sort of personalized future, where you have a whole range of different drugs with different experiences, durations, intensities, and different pharmacodynamic and kinetic characteristics that will make them better for a whole range of different indications. So there's a lot more work to do, I think, to do kind of the drug discovery work to support that future. And that's really the core focus of our scientific team. We look to advance drugs to a point where we can partner with groups that have that kind of clinical expertise, and which we've done
Yep.
so far,
Yep.
obviously with Otsuka. But we'll look to continue to repeat that model so that we can really focus on identifying and creating as many finely tuned medicines as possible for this future, where we think we think that ultimately there'll be, a much wider range of drugs than the ones that we talk
Yeah.
about
And
today.
I think a lot of people will sit here and say, well, research does take a long time. I believe that this will advance as far as like what we're learning. Like think of me like where we were even 12 months ago pertaining to this industry, what we've learned since then. But I can't help but feel like when you talk about all this duration and stuff that's outlining and how we'll have alternative solutions related to mental health and a lot of the research that you're pertaining to some of the compounds that you've discussed, but do you not think this will advance and we will learn a lot of stuff a lot quicker than what people are anticipating right now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're going to have the first generation drugs, in all likelihood, psilocybin and MDMA approved in the next couple of
Right.
years. And there's still, we just announced a research partnership with CAMH here in
Great
Toronto.
news.
Yeah, thanks. Doing some work to essentially, better understand what are the actual biological changes that happen in the brain, when you use psychedelic compounds. So there's still an awful lot that isn't, like, all the data shows that these drugs really have a therapeutic benefit, but there's a whole lot more that we don't understand about how it is that they actually do that and how it is that they actually work, what they call the mechanism of action. And I
You
think
think that'll
as
change though?
that
That'll
work,
change in time, correct?
that's all it's all that there's a lot of work going on right now, and the study that's happening at CAMH, I think, is really representative of
Yeah.
the swell of scientific interest and really understanding how that mechanism of action works. That work is really going to help us, all of us in the space, really identify the most promising drug candidates, and really figure out which indications this kind of medication, is best suited for. So yeah, really
So I
excited.
want to touch on that announcement because that's a big announcement. For those that don't know who CAMH is, which I'm sure there's not a lot, because it is a well-known mental wellness for patients suffering from serious depressions and psychiatric conditions. They're located in Toronto. So you plan to sponsor a preclinical study at CAMH using MSP 1014. It's being used for its first in-human studies alongside psilocybin. So, congrats on the achievement, and explain to us further how monumental this announcement is.
Yes. So this study specifically is studying the um, changes in proteins in rodent brains, and the duration of those
Yep.
changes, and really comparing psilocybin and MSP 1014. And this is, I think, something that you're going to start hearing more about in the psychedelic space is durability. So really trying to understand, like, we know from the preclinical and the clinical data now that, generally speaking, there's this window of relief from depressive symptoms with psilocybin assisted psychotherapy. But really, how long do those changes last, and what are actually the again, the biological changes that have happened in the brain that are correlated to that relief from depressive symptoms. So that's really a high level kind of sense of what it is that the study is focused on. But really understanding durability, and then what
That's
are the
interesting.
actual physical
Yeah.
changes? What are the actual physical changes that, like, underlie this relief from depression? And I think, again, that kind of information is going to be incredibly valuable
Yeah.
to scientists, really trying to understand the space, and again, really kind of finely tune drug candidates to bring forward to help people with these neuropsychiatric
How
conditions.
did the whole partnership come to fruition?
Oh, it was via one of the members of our scientific advisory board who is also consultant to Mindset and knows some of the scientists at CAMH pretty well. So we were really excited to be involved
Great.
when the opportunity presented itself. Because as you noted, they really are probably one of the top one of the top, if not the top, psychiatric research institutions in Canada and very well known globally as well.
Last thing I wanted to touch on, we had you back on, I think it was January, and you said, I think Big Pharma is going to get in relatively soon. Well, that was indeed the case a couple weeks later when you made the announcement being associated with the Otsuka family of pharmaceutical companies. You announced the McQuaid Center for Strategic Research and Development, a member, as I said, of the Otsuka family of pharmaceutical companies. How's that working out expectation wise? It's been probably about 6 months. Can we expect further collaboration in the future?
Oh, I mean, the collaboration is very much ongoing. We couldn't have asked for, a better partner.
How so?
Um, they, uh, like I've said, I think I've said before, there's really, there's two sides to the partnership in terms of, what Mindset gets. Obviously, there's all this funding from Otsuka on really, favorable, attractive terms to fund the development of the programs. But additionally, just being able to rely on really their
Right.
expertise, like this all really helps, justify, validate, and kind of support Mindset's model, which from the beginning has been, we think there's an opportunity to really focus on drug discovery. And if we're good at that, then we'll have options to, partner with groups that have real expertise in running drugs through the clinical trial process and ultimately taking them to market. And Otsuka has, is a top global, psychiatric drug company. And just being able to really leverage their internal expertise is huge for Mindset
Yeah.
because it means that we
Yeah.
don't have to go out and bring on all kinds of other folks and really, change the organization and how we do business. And they're a great group to work with. So yeah, the collaboration is very much, ongoing. We're working on selecting a lead from family two, as well as doing some more work on our family four. So yeah, it's going great. You'll certainly be hearing more about what we're up to over the next
The
few
original
months.
announcement was $5 million in funding, correct? But could grow as much as 30 to 40 million, if I understood that correctly. Is that correct?
Well, so to be clear, the $5 million was simply a payment to Mindset in return for a right of first refusal on these two
Yeah.
families that are part of the collaboration. But that was completely separate from the funding for the actual
Right.
programs themselves. So we don't have that's not a publicly available figure, but if you can see our financial statements and see that that cash being funded by Otsuka. It's not an insignificant number.
Yeah.
So and and all of that funding is non-dilutive and just goes towards this right of first refusal for Otsuka, which to our mind is really like the perfect collaboration
Yeah.
construct,
Well, I
if you
bring that
will.
up just because good luck trying to raise money in these market conditions right now. It's pretty difficult to say the least. And I think that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to this industry, which is why it's so important for companies to be, diversification, have a long cash runway. So would you say, based on this collaboration agreement, working with them, it answers a lot of those questions?
Yeah, it certainly, means that Mindset has, no need to go to tap the capital markets, in the near term, to raise capital to finance our
Yeah.
business. We're able to continue to do additional discovery work, and we can do that, quite cost effectively. And the Otsuka partnership just really funds the development of the program. So and all non-dilutive funding. So it's couldn't ask for, especially in this
I
environment.
know.
It's a great relationship to have.
Well, listen, this has been great. We need to do this more often, right?
Love it.
It's been a few months, but I hope you're enjoying the weather out in the West Coast. But enjoy this summer weather right now. We pray for it all year long in Canada, but I know you're going to be busy working. But honestly, with all due respect, I appreciate all the updates, and let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on,
You
Chad.
as
Really
well.
appreciate it,
Thanks,
as
James.
always.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, wait until you see what we have next. Some of the best thought leaders in the verticals that we cover, from cannabis and psychedelics to cryptos and NFTs and sports wagering. So if you want to learn more, make sure to click on that bell for all notifications. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.